I'm 66 years old, and I need to tell you about the 5 years I disappeared from civilization, how my photographer partner David Chen and I stumbled into a Bigfoot village in the Brooks Range of Alaska, how we discovered they weren't just real, they were the last survivors of a systematic government culling operation, and how we became part of their family, living in hiding, helping them survive while helicopters hunted them from above. My name is Mackenzie. In June 1988, David and I were chasing a story about Bigfoot sightings in the Brooks Range. We were freelance journalists, me writing, David photographing, trying to break into mainstream publications with something spectacular. We'd heard rumors from pipeline workers, strange tracks near glacial streams, vocalizations that weren't wolves or bears, missing supplies from remote camps, the kind of stories that got dismissed as wilderness mythology but felt too consistent to be complete fabrication. So we loaded our packs with 3 weeks of supplies and hiked into unmapped tundra, miles from the nearest access road, looking for evidence of creatures that supposedly didn't exist. We found tracks, 18-inch footprints preserved in mud along a stream, clear toe definition, mid-tarsal break, stride length that was impossible for bears or humans. And we followed them. For a week, we tracked those prints deeper into the Brooks Range, into terrain so brutal that casual hikers would have turned back, into a box canyon that felt deliberately designed to deter access. The tracks would disappear, then reappear, leading us, guiding us, making sure we kept following. We were being brought somewhere deliberately, by something intelligent enough to use breadcrumbs to lead humans into their territory. And when we finally reached the box canyon, we found them. Not fleeting shadows, not ambiguous evidence. Actual Bigfoot, living in camouflaged structures against the cliffside. 2 of them, the last survivors of a clan that had been systematically hunted to near extinction. Silas, an 8-foot elder covered in dark fur, face scarred from decades of survival. And Rook, younger, reddish fur, cautious but curious about the humans who'd followed his deliberately placed tracks. They didn't attack. They communicated, used low-frequency sounds that we felt more than heard, made gestures that were unmistakably intentional, showed us their shelter, their tools, their scavenged human artifacts collected over generations. And over the following weeks, we learned why they'd led us there, why they'd risked exposure to make contact with our species, despite having every reason to hide. They were dying out. 2 males, no females. No way to continue their lineage. They needed help finding others of their kind. Needed human allies who could navigate the modern world in ways they couldn't. We stayed. God help us, we stayed. What was supposed to be a 3-week expedition became 5 years living in hiding with the last Bigfoot of the Brooks Range. We documented everything. Their language, their social structure, their history told through charcoal drawings in a cave that showed exactly what had happened to their people. Helicopters, nets, gunfire, systematic elimination during the Cold War. And we discovered why. Why they'd been hunted so aggressively. Why the government wanted them captured or killed. They have regenerative abilities. We watched Silas heal a severe wound on Rook with his bare hands, accelerated clotting, tissue regeneration, biological processes that defied everything we knew about mammalian healing. That's why they've been hunted, not because they're cryptids, because they're biological weapons waiting to be harvested, because their tissue, their blood, their genetic material could revolutionize military medicine or create enhanced soldiers. We have documentation, thousands of photos, journals, evidence that would prove Bigfoot exist and explain why they've stayed hidden. But releasing that evidence would be their death sentence, would bring researchers, military contractors, government agencies, would end their last chance at survival. So we stayed silent for 30 years, until now. Until circumstances changed enough that maybe we can tell this story without destroying what we're trying to protect. Before we begin, comment below and let me know where you're watching this from today. And if you've ever had to choose between telling the truth and protecting the vulnerable, you'll understand what comes next. This channel exists for people like you. Each episode brings a new character, a new encounter, a new perspective on what might be watching from the shadows. Help me reach 1,000 subscribers. Comment your story and share if this moved you. Now let me tell you about the summer of 1988 and the tracks that changed everything. David and I met in 1986 at a wilderness photography workshop. I was a struggling journalist writing gear reviews and trail guides for outdoor magazines. He was a talented photographer who couldn't break into major publications because his work was too unconventional. We bonded over shared frustration. We were both good at what we did, both passionate about wilderness, both broke and desperate to make names for ourselves. "We need a big story," I said one night over cheap beer. "Something that makes editors pay attention. Something they can't ignore." "Bigfoot," David said, half joking, half serious. "Bigfoot doesn't exist," I said automatically. Probably not, but the sightings persist. Pipeline workers, hunters, indigenous communities, they keep reporting the same thing. Massive bipedal creatures in remote areas. What if there's something there, not necessarily Bigfoot, maybe an unidentified bear species, maybe something. And if we find nothing, we write about the search, about why people need to believe in mysteries, about wilderness psychology. Either way, it's a story. We pitched it to every magazine we could think of, got rejected by all of them. Too speculative, too expensive to fund, too risky for serious publications, so we funded it ourselves. Maxed out credit cards, borrowed equipment, planned a 3-week expedition into the Brooks Range following up on sighting reports from pipeline workers. We were desperate, broke, willing to chase anything that might give us the career breakthrough we needed. We had no idea what we were actually walking into. The Brooks Range in 1988 was about as remote as you could get in North America. No cell phones, those barely existed. No GPS, we navigated with map and compass. No satellite communication. Just us and the wilderness. We flew into a small bush pilot airstrip, hired a pilot to drop us at a remote location, and arranged for pickup 3 weeks later. If something went wrong, if we got injured or lost, we were on our own. The landscape was brutal. Tundra, glacial streams, mountains that looked like they'd been carved by giants, and silence. The kind of profound silence that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. "This is incredible," David said on day 2, photographing the midnight sun. "This is what real wilderness feels like." But I felt something else. Unease, the kind of primitive awareness that comes from being watched. "Do you feel that?" I asked. "Feel what?" "Like we're not alone." David lowered his camera, looked around. "I don't see anything. Neither do I. But something's watching us." We found the first tracks on day 5, along a glacial stream, preserved in mud, 18 inches long. 5 distinct toes, mid-tarsal break in the arch. David photographed them obsessively, measured them, documented every detail. "These aren't bear tracks," he said. "Bears have claws. These have toes, human-like toes, but wrong proportions." "Could be a hoax," I said, even though I didn't believe it. We were miles from anywhere. Who would hoax tracks here? "Or it's real," David said. "Or it's real, and we just found the story that changes everything." We followed the tracks. Not because we had a plan, because we didn't know what else to do. They led us deeper into the mountains, away from our planned route, away from where our pickup was scheduled. "We need to turn back," I said on day 7. "We're burning through supplies. We're off route. If we keep going, we won't make pickup." 3 more days, David said. "If we don't find anything in 3 days, we turn back." "But Mac, these tracks keep appearing. Right when we think we've lost the trail, there's another print. Something is leading us. Or we're seeing patterns that aren't there. Confirmation bias. Look at this." David pointed to a print that was perfectly positioned on a clear patch of mud between rocks. "This is deliberate placement. This is meant to be seen. Something wants us to follow." Against my better judgment, I agreed. 3 more days. On day 8, we entered the Box Canyon. Steep walls on 3 sides, single entrance. Terrain so difficult we had to climb using hands and feet. "This is a natural fortress," I said. "Defensible, easy to monitor who's approaching, perfect place to hide." And that's when we saw them. Camouflaged structures built against the cliffside, woven from willow branches and caribou hide, so perfectly integrated with the landscape that we'd walked within 50 feet before noticing. "Oh my God," David whispered. "Mac, that's not natural. That's constructed. That's architecture." We approached cautiously. I had my rifle ready. David had his flare gun. We'd agreed if something attacked, we'd defend ourselves, but we wouldn't shoot first. And then they appeared. 2 massive figures stepping out from behind the structures. Bigfoot, actual Bigfoot, 8 feet tall, covered in fur, faces that were neither fully ape nor fully human, eyes that showed unmistakable intelligence. We should have run, should have documented from a distance, should have done anything except what we actually did. We lowered our weapons, raised our hands, showed we weren't threats, and waited to see if they'd kill us or let us live. The larger one, we'd later learn his name was Silas, approached slowly. Each step deliberate, cautious. His eyes never left us. He was massive, 8 feet tall easily, shoulders broader than any human, arms that hung longer than proportional, covered in dark brown fur that was graying at the face and chest. But it was his eyes that stopped me. Brown, intelligent, assessing. These weren't animal eyes. These were the eyes of a person evaluating threat level and making decisions. He stopped maybe 15 feet away, made a sound, low frequency, almost subsonic. I felt it in my chest more than heard it. The younger one, Rook, flanked us from the right. Not aggressively, more like, "Back up." support if Silas needed it. "We're not here to hurt you," I said, knowing they couldn't understand English but hoping tone would communicate intent. We followed your tracks. We're just trying to understand." Silas tilted his head, studied us, made another sound, different frequency this time, almost questioning. David very slowly lowered his camera bag, pulled out his camera, showed it to Silas. "This is a camera, for making pictures. Can I photograph you?" Silas looked at the camera, made a sound to Rook. Rook responded. They were conferring, discussing us, making decisions through communication we couldn't pass. Silas approached closer. David and I stayed frozen, every instinct screaming to run, but reason telling us that running would trigger a chase we'd lose. Silas reached out one massive hand, leather-padded palm, fingers that were thick and powerful but showed remarkable dexterity. He touched my face, gently, carefully. His hand was warm. The touch was tentative, like he was verifying I was real, that humans were actually real and not just stories his kind told. I stayed absolutely still, barely breathing. This creature could crush my skull with one hand, but his touch was gentle, curious, almost tender. He made a sound, soft, satisfied, then stepped back. Rook approached David, did the same thing, touched David's face, verified his reality. Then Silas gestured toward the structures. A clear invitation. "Come, see, we'll show you." "Are we actually doing this?" David whispered. "Are we actually following them?" "I think we just were invited into a Bigfoot home," I said, "and I think refusing would be incredibly rude." We followed them into the structures. Inside, the structures were more sophisticated than they'd appeared from outside. Multiple chambers, sleeping areas lined with dried moss and caribou hide, food storage, smoked salmon hanging from racks, dried berries in woven baskets, and artifacts, human artifacts, scavenged over what must have been decades. An old tin can, label faded but readable, Gold Rush 1897, a skinning knife, handle wrapped in hide, blade worn but serviceable, mining logs, pages water damaged but dates visible, 1952, a field guide to Alaskan wildlife from the 1950s, pages carefully preserved in what looked like rendered animal fat. "They've been collecting our things," David said, photographing everything. "For generations, they've been studying us." Silas watched David photograph, made a sound to Rook. Rook disappeared into another chamber, returned with something wrapped in hide. He unwrapped it carefully. Inside, photographs, black and white, faded, showing Bigfoot, multiple individuals, what looked like a family group. "These are their people," I said. "This is documentation of their clan. From before whatever happened to reduce them to just two." Silas touched the photographs, made a sound that was unmistakably grief, pointed to individuals in the photos, then to himself and Rook, seemed to be explaining, "These were family, now only we remain." Rook made vocalizations that sounded like questions. Silas responded. They were having a conversation, about us, about what to do with us, about whether we could be trusted. We stayed in that structure for hours. Silas and Rook brought us food, smoked salmon, berries, water from the stream. They shared their provisions, offered hospitality. "They're not attacking," David said. "They're hosting. This is first contact, actual first contact between species, and they're being hospitable. Or they're deciding whether to kill us and figuring out if we're worth eating first," I said. "Look at their tools, look at this place. These are people, Mac, not animals, people with culture and history and family structures. And they're the last two. That's what those photographs showed. A whole clan reduced to 2 survivors. I thought about our options. We could leave, document what we'd seen, publish it, become famous as the journalists who proved Bigfoot exist, or we could stay, learn, try to understand what had happened to this species, try to figure out why 2 males were all that remained of what the photos showed had been a thriving group. We should stay, I said, at least a few more days, document properly, learn their story. The pickup, David reminded me. We're supposed to be at the landing site in 2 weeks. We radio the pilot, delay pickup, say we found something and need more time. And if they won't delay, I looked at Silas, at Rook, at beings who'd welcomed us instead of killing us, who'd shared food and shelter with members of a species that had probably hunted them. Then we miss the pickup, and we figure out how to survive here until we can arrange extraction. David nodded. Okay, we stay, we learn, we document, and we figure out what the hell happened that left only 2 of them alive. That night we slept in their structure. They gave us a chamber separate from theirs, privacy, respect for our space, but they stayed close, watchful. Around midnight, I woke to sounds, Silas and Rook talking, low vocalizations, complex patterns. I listened, trying to pass meaning, even though I couldn't understand. Then Silas appeared in our chamber, made a gesture. Come, see. David and I followed him outside. He led us up a rocky slope to a vantage point overlooking the canyon. The midnight sun, Alaska in summer, created twilight that never became full darkness. The landscape glowed, and Silas pointed. In the distance, mountains, valleys, endless wilderness. He made sweeping gestures, pointed to different areas, made sounds that seemed to indicate this was ours. All of this, our territory, our home. Then he made different sounds, darker. He gestured toward the sky, made a chopping motion with his hands, pointed to his ears. Helicopters, David said. He's describing helicopters. The sound, the rotor motion. Silas nodded emphatically. Yes, helicopters. He made more gestures, showed people being taken, showed violence, showed his clan being hunted. They weren't killed by natural causes, I said, understanding dawning. They were hunted, systematically, by humans with helicopters. Silas touched his chest, then touched Rook, made a gesture. Only we survived. Only we remain. He was telling us his history, explaining why he and Rook were alone, why they'd risked contact with humans despite humans being the ones who'd destroyed their clan, because they were desperate, because two males couldn't continue the species alone, because they needed help finding others if others still existed, and they'd chosen us, two humans, hoping we'd be different from the humans who'd hunted them. That's when I understood. This wasn't just documentation. This was alliance. This was them asking for help from a species that had nearly exterminated them, and we had to decide if we were worthy of that trust. If you're watching this and you've ever had someone trust you when they had every reason not to, stay with this story. My journalist colleagues said nobody would believe what we experienced, but if you're still here, you're proving them wrong. Hit subscribe. Help me show that some stories matter more than credibility, that some beings deserve protection more than proof. Now back to Alaska, summer 1988. We radioed the bush pilot the next morning, told him we'd found significant wildlife activity and needed to extend our stay. Could he delay pickup by 2 weeks? He grumbled about scheduling but agreed, gave us a new extraction date, told us to be at the landing site or we'd be stranded until he could arrange another flight. 2 weeks, David said after the call ended. That gives us time to document properly, learn their patterns, maybe understand what happened. Silas and Rook had watched the radio communication with obvious interest. Silas approached our equipment after we'd finished, examined the radio carefully. He made questioning sounds, touched the antenna, looked at us. It's for talking, I said, demonstrating by speaking into the handset, to people far away, across distances. Silas's eyes widened. He made excited sounds to Rook. Rook approached, examined the radio too. They understood the concept. Communications across distance. They had their own version, those low-frequency vocalizations that carried for miles, but they recognized the radio as the human equivalent. Silas made a complex series of sounds, gestured in ways that seemed to ask, can this reach other humans? Everywhere. Yes, I said. If they have radios too, we can talk to people hundreds of miles away. Silas and Rook exchanged glances, made sounds between themselves, clear conversation happening that we couldn't follow. Then Silas did something remarkable. He went into the structure, returned with the old field guide, opened it to a map of Alaska and the Yukon. He pointed to locations on the map, made sounds, gestured like he was asking questions. Holy shit, David whispered. He's asking if we can use the radio to contact other locations, other places where others of his kind might be. Over the next few days, we established routines. Mornings, Silas and Rook would hunt or fish. David and I would document, photographing the structures, the tools, the artifacts, taking notes on everything we observed. Afternoons, we'd gather as a group. Silas would teach us their communication system, low-frequency vocalizations for long distance, higher-frequency sounds for close range, hand gestures for precise meanings. We taught them English words, simple ones: water, food, friend, danger. The progress was remarkable. Within a week, we could conduct basic exchanges, nothing complex, but enough to coordinate activities and share simple concepts. Rook was the faster learner, younger, more adaptable. He'd make human words, not quite right. His vocal apparatus couldn't produce some sounds, but close enough to be understood. Ma'ak, he'd say, pointing at me. David. Yes, I'd confirm. Mac, David, good. He'd make his pleased sound. The vocalization we'd learned meant satisfaction or happiness. Silas was more cautious, but when he did attempt English words, they were carefully chosen. Friend, help, safe. Those were the concepts that mattered to him. Building trust, establishing that we weren't threats, We fell into domestic rhythms. They taught us to smoke fish properly, using specific woods that provided flavor and preservation, showed us which berries were safe to eat, which were poisonous, demonstrated how to move through the terrain without leaving obvious tracks. We taught them about modern human technology, showed them how the camera worked, took their photos, showed them the images on the back screen. Silas was fascinated, would touch the screen gently, making sounds of wonder. We explained the radio in more detail, how it worked, how signals traveled, how humans had networks of communication spanning the globe. That's when Silas shared the map again, the field guide with locations marked in charcoal. He pointed to one mark in particular, deep in the Wrangell St. Elias wilderness. He made complex vocalizations. Rook joined in, adding details. David and I compared notes, trying to parse meaning. I think they're saying there might be others there. Another group, maybe including females. Why don't they just go? I asked. Silas made more sounds, gestures, showed the distance on the map, made the helicopter motion again, showed fear. The route is exposed, David said. Too visible. They'd be seen if they tried to travel that far. They need help navigating, or camouflage, or something we can provide that they can't manage alone. That's when I understood the full scope of what they were asking. They didn't just want documentation, they wanted alliance, wanted human allies who could help them reach other survivors safely. 2 weeks became 3, 3 became 4. We kept delaying the pickup, kept telling the pilot we needed more time, kept going deeper into this relationship. One evening, Silas led us to a location we hadn't seen before, a lava tube cave high in the rocky peaks, difficult to access, deliberately hidden. Inside, the walls were covered in artwork, charcoal drawings, crude but clear, the history of the clan. Early drawings showed large groups, families, what looked like dozens of individuals, hunting, gathering, living. Then the tone shifted. Drawings of iron birds, helicopters clearly, drawings of nets, drawings of Bigfoot being hauled into the air, drawings of violence, gunfire, drawing after drawing showing systematic elimination, the clan being hunted, captured, killed, and final drawings showing just 2 figures remaining, Silas and Rook, alone. This is genocide documentation, David said quietly, photographing everything. This is their Holocaust memorial, their record of systematic extermination. Silas stood beside the drawings, made long, mournful vocalizations, touched specific figures, family members probably, people he'd lost. Rook joined him. They stood together making harmonized sounds, grieving, remembering. We stood there witnessing their mourning, seeing the full scope of what had happened, understanding that these weren't just 2 random Bigfoot, these were survivors, the last remnants of a people who'd been hunted nearly to extinction. Who did this? I asked, even though they couldn't fully answer. Government, military, private contractors. Silas made the helicopter gesture again, made sounds that seemed to indicate organized, systematic, not random hunters, deliberate elimination. That night around our fire, David and I processed what we'd learned. We can't publish this, David said. If we document that Bigfoot exist, if we provide proof, whoever hunted them will resume operations, will finish what they started. But we're journalists, I said. Our job is to report truth. This is the biggest story of our lives, proof of an unknown species, documentation of their near extinction. This could change everything. Change it how? Make them famous? Get them protected under Endangered Species Act? Or make them targets again, government specimens, laboratory subjects? I thought about the drawings, about Silas and Rook's obvious terror of helicopters, about the systematic nature of what had happened to their people. Someone wanted them eliminated, I said, or captured. For some reason, their existence was threatening enough to justify systematic hunting. If we reveal they're real, we might be signing their death warrant. So what do? We help them, I said. We document everything for ourselves, but we don't publish. We use our knowledge to help them find others, to facilitate reunification if other groups exist. We become allies instead of journalists. That's throwing away our careers. This story could make us, get us into every major publication, book deals, speaking tours, everything we wanted. I know. But they trusted us, David. They could have killed us, could have driven us away. Instead, they shared their history, showed us their genocide, asked for help. We can't betray that for career advancement. David was quiet for a long time, then, okay, we stay, we help. We document for protection, not publication. We become part of their survival story instead of their exposure. We shook hands, made the commitment. Career suicide for the sake of beings who trusted us when they had every reason not to. It was the easiest decision we'd ever made. 6 months in, summer faded to autumn. The midnight sun gave way to increasingly long nights. We should have been extracted months ago. Instead, we'd gone fully off-grid. I told the bush pilot we were conducting long-term wildlife study, paid him with the last of our cash reserves to drop supplies every 6 weeks, told family we were on extended assignment and couldn't be reached except through mail drops. Essentially, we disappeared. David Chen and Mackenzie, freelance journalists, had vanished into the Alaskan wilderness. And we'd transformed. Looked more like mountain men than modern humans. Beards grown long, clothes worn and patched. Bodies adapted to constant physical labor and tundra living. Silas and Rook had transformed too. Not physically, but behaviorally. They'd gone from cautious hosts to genuine companions. We'd become a pack, a family unit. We hunted together. Silas showing us how to move silently through terrain we'd have crashed through noisily. Rook teaching us to read animal signs we'd have missed. We processed food together, smoking fish using their techniques, preserving berries for winter, building stores that would see all 4 of us through the brutal cold, and we'd developed sophisticated communication, hybrid system mixing their vocalizations with our English, supplemented by hand signs we'd created together. Wasn't quite language, more like pidgin, but it worked. We could convey complex ideas. One afternoon in October, we heard it. The sound Silas and Rook feared most. Helicopter rotors, distant but approaching. Silas made urgent vocalizations. Rook responded. They moved with remarkable speed toward prepared positions, earth blinds covered with moss and sod, hidden refuges they'd clearly constructed for exactly this scenario. They gestured urgently. Come, hide, now. We followed, dove into the blinds with them, pressed against the earth as the helicopter sound grew louder. It passed overhead, black, unmarked, flying search pattern, clearly looking for something. Silas was trembling. Actual fear. This apex predator, this being who could tear a grizzly apart, was terrified of that helicopter. The fear was contagious. David and I stayed absolutely still, barely breathing, until the helicopter sounds faded into the distance. After 20 minutes of silence, Silas made a cautious sound. Safe, for now. We emerged from the blinds. Silas immediately went to high ground, watched the sky, keeping vigil. They're still being hunted, David said, actively. Whoever did this to their clan, they're still looking, still trying to find survivors. Why? I asked. What could possibly justify this level of effort? This is military-grade operation for supposedly non-existent creatures. Rook made sounds, gestured toward himself and Silas, pointed to their bodies, made healing gestures. What's he saying? David asked. I watched Rook's gestures carefully. I think he's saying there's something about them physically, something about their bodies. That's why they're being hunted. But we wouldn't understand what until months later. Winter arrived brutally, temperatures dropping to 40 below, darkness lasting 20 hours a day, conditions that would have killed David and me if we'd been alone. But Silas and Rook kept us alive, shared their caribou hide shelters, showed us how to layer clothing properly, demonstrated cold weather survival techniques they'd perfected over generations. In return, we shared human knowledge. I taught them basic first aid from our medical kit. David showed them photography. They were endlessly fascinated by the concept of capturing moments permanently, and we gave them hope, spent evenings studying the map with the marked locations, planning routes to the Wrangell St. Elias wilderness, discussing how we might facilitate travel safely. Silas had a ritual. Every evening he'd pull out the old photographs, the ones showing his lost clan. He'd touch each face, make soft sounds remembering. One night he handed me a photograph, pointed to a female figure, made sounds that conveyed important, special. That was his mate, David said quietly. He's showing you who he lost. Silas made more sounds, touched the female's image, then made a gesture toward the marked location on the map, made questioning sounds. He's asking if we think she might be alive, if there's any chance others survived and made it to that sanctuary location. The hope in Silas's eyes was heartbreaking. This being had lived with grief and loss for decades, had watched his entire family be systematically eliminated, and he was asking if there was any possibility, any chance, that someone he loved had survived. Yes, I said, even though I had no way to know. Yes, there's a chance, and we're going to help you find out. Silas touched my face gently, the gesture he'd made when we first met, verification of reality. But this time it meant something more. Gratitude, trust, family. By the first winter, our communication had evolved significantly. We could discuss abstract concepts, share stories, even make jokes, or what passed for jokes across species. Rook had learned to mimic human laughter. Not quite right, more like a huffing sound, but the intent was clear. He'd do something mischievous, like hiding David's camera bag, then make his laugh sound when David couldn't find it. Silas was more serious, but he'd developed a subtle humor, would make sounds that were clearly teasing, would gesture in exaggerated ways to make points, had personality we'd grown to love. One evening, David played music from his portable cassette player, battery-powered, one of the luxuries from our supply drops. Silas and Rook were mesmerized, sat listening to Beethoven with expressions of wonder. Then Silas made sounds, musical sounds, harmonics we'd never heard from him before. Rook joined in. They created a duet, low-frequency vocalizations that blended with Beethoven in ways that were hauntingly beautiful. We recorded it, David and I sitting in stunned silence while two Bigfoot created music, demonstrated artistic expression, showed capacity for aesthetic appreciation. "This is culture," David whispered. "This is art. These aren't just intelligent animals. They're people with artistic traditions." When the music ended, Silas looked at us, made a sound we'd learned meant good, acceptable, beautiful, I said. "That was beautiful." Silas made his pleased sound, and we sat together, 4 beings from 2 species, sharing music in the Alaskan wilderness. Spring of our first year, April 1989. The snow was melting, rivers swelling with runoff. The tundra was coming back to life. One morning, Rook didn't emerge from the sleeping chamber. Silas was making distressed sounds, gesturing urgently for us to come. We found Rook curled in pain, a wound on his leg, deep gash, probably from a wolverine encounter. The wound was infected, inflamed. Rook was running a fever. "We need to treat this," I said, pulling out our medical kit. "Antibiotics, wound cleaning, this is serious." But Silas stopped me, made a gesture. "Wait, watch." He positioned himself beside Rook, placed both hands directly on the infected wound, closed his eyes, began making low-frequency vocalizations, and I watched something impossible. The wound began changing. The inflammation reduced visibly, the infection seemed to retreat, and new tissue started forming. Not scar tissue, healthy tissue, regenerating at a pace that defied everything I knew about mammalian healing. After maybe 20 minutes, Silas removed his hands. The wound wasn't fully healed, but it was dramatically improved. What should have taken weeks of recovery had compressed into minutes. Rook made grateful sounds, touched Silas's face. "Clear affection and thanks." "What the fuck did we just see?" David whispered, camera forgotten in his hands. Silas looked at us, made complex vocalizations, gestured to his hands, to Rook's wound, to both of them. I think," I said slowly, "I think we just saw why they've been hunted, why helicopters keep searching, why their clan was systematically eliminated." "Regenerative abilities," David said. "Biological healing that's revolutionary. That's worth billions in military applications. Medical breakthroughs. This isn't just an unknown species. This is a biological goldmine." Silas seemed to understand our reaction, made sounds that conveyed, "This is why. This is what they want. This is why we hide." "They're not hunting you to prove you exist," I said. "They're hunting you to harvest you, to study you, to weaponize what you can do." Silas nodded. "Yes, exactly." And I understood with perfect clarity. We could never reveal what we'd seen, because revealing it would be a death sentence worse than extinction, would mean laboratory captivity, biological exploitation, being reduced from persons to resources. We'd just witnessed the secret that explained everything, and it was a secret we'd have to die protecting. Summer 1989. We'd been living with Silas and Rook for over a year, had become truly feral. Our supplies from the outside world were minimal, just essentials we couldn't produce ourselves. We lived like they did, hunted, gathered, existed in harmony with the brutal landscape. One morning in July, the bush pilot made his scheduled drop. But something was different. He lingered, asked more questions than usual. "You guys doing okay up here?" he asked. "Been over a year. That's a long time for a wildlife study." "We're documenting seasonal patterns," I said. The lie came easily now. "Need multiple annual cycles for proper data." "What species?" He was pushing. Not casual curiosity. Targeted questions. "Caribou primarily, migration routes, population dynamics." He looked at David, at me, at our appearance. We looked like mountain men, not scientists. "Right," he said slowly. "Caribou. Well, just so you know, Forest Service has been asking about unauthorized activity in this area, unexplained campfire smoke, reports from overflight crews. They're planning a sweep in the next few weeks. Make sure all research permits are current." After he left, David and I looked at each other. "We don't have research permits," David said. "No. And a Forest Service sweep means helicopters, boots on the ground, systematic search of the area. We need to tell them. Warn Silas and Rook." We found them at the fishing site, used our hybrid communication system to explain helicopters coming, many humans, searching area, danger. Silas's reaction was immediate terror. He made urgent sounds to Rook. They began dismantling evidence of occupation, breaking down structures, scattering tools, erasing signs of habitation. They've done this before, David said, watching them work with practiced efficiency. This isn't the first time they've had to disappear. Silas came to us, made complex gestures, pointed to us, pointed away from the canyon. Clear message. You need to leave. Not safe for you here. We're not leaving you, I said. Silas made frustrated sounds, gestured more emphatically. You're in danger. They'll find you. They'll question you. You can't protect us if you're caught with us. He was right. If we were found living with Bigfoot, we'd be detained, questioned. Our documentation would be seized. Everything we'd learned would be compromised. We'll leave temporarily, I said. Hide our equipment. Make it look like we were just passing through. Then come back after the sweep. Silas made his agreement sound, but his eyes showed worry. This separation felt different, felt more dangerous. We broke camp, buried our cameras, journals, evidence in waterproof containers, hiked 15 miles to a different location where we could credibly claim to be conducting legitimate research. The helicopters came 3 days later, 2 of them, flying grid search patterns. We watched from a distance, pretending to study caribou movements. They landed in the Box Canyon. We could see personnel deploying, at least a dozen people. Not Forest Service rangers, they moved like military. Tactical gear, systematic search procedures. That's not a permit check, David said. That's a hunting operation. We waited, watched, helpless to intervene without revealing everything. After 6 hours, the helicopters lifted off, left. We waited another day to make sure they were gone, then hiked back to the canyon. The campsite was destroyed. Not by Silas and Rook's careful dismantling, by systematic search. Every structure torn apart, every hiding place excavated, the earth blinds exposed and documented, but no sign of Silas and Rook. No blood, no evidence of capture. They'd escaped. Somehow, impossibly, they'd evaded a military-grade search operation. We found a message, stones arranged in a pattern we recognized, Silas's communication system, pointing direction, north. They want us to follow, David said. We followed the trail of markers for 2 days, through terrain so difficult the helicopters couldn't have tracked it. Finally found them in a new location, a cave system they'd clearly prepared as emergency backup. Silas and Rook were terrified but alive, unharmed. But something had changed. The canyon had been their home for years. Now it was compromised. They could never go back. That night, Silas showed us more of his photographs, pulled out ones we hadn't seen before. Different individuals, different locations. He made complex vocalizations, pointed to the map, pointed to the marked location in Wrangell St. Elias, made urgent sounds. He's saying we need to go, David interpreted. Now, before another sweep, before they find this location too. That's hundreds of miles, I said, through some of the most remote wilderness in North America. How do we travel that distance without being seen? Silas made more sounds, gestured to himself and Rook, gestured to us, made a unification gesture. Together, we go together. He's asking us to come with them, David said, to help them reach the sanctuary, to facilitate the journey in ways they can't do alone. I thought about what that meant. Months of travel, complete abandonment of our previous lives, no more supply drops, no more contact with civilization, just 4 beings crossing brutal wilderness to reach a location that might not even have other survivors. If we do this, I said, we're not coming back, not to our old lives. We become permanent exiles. Everything we were before, careers, families, futures, that all ends. David looked at Silas, at Rook, at beings who'd trusted us with their survival, who'd shared their history and their grief, who'd made us family. I know, David said, but we can't abandon them now. They need us. And honestly, I'm not sure I want to go back. What we have here, this is more real than anything we left behind. Silas was watching us, waiting for our decision, his eyes showing hope and fear in equal measure. We'll go, I said. We'll help you reach the sanctuary, whatever it takes. Silas made a sound we'd learned was profound gratitude, touched both our faces, made vocalizations that meant family, pack, together always. We'd just committed to abandoning civilization, to becoming permanent companions to the last 2 Bigfoot of the Brooks Range, to helping them find others of their kind or dying in the attempt. We prepared for weeks, gathered supplies, plotted routes using our maps combined with Silas's knowledge of the terrain, planned for a journey that would take months. Then, one night, Rook returned from scouting with urgent vocalizations, gestured for us to come quickly. We followed him to a ridge. He pointed to the valley below. Campfire. Human campfire. 3 figures around it. Hunters, David said, or researchers, or worse, more of whoever's been hunting Silas and Rook. Silas made cautious sounds, gestured. Wait. Watch. We watched for hours. The figures below seemed to be just campers. No tactical gear, no search patterns, just people who'd wandered into the area. But then I saw something that made my blood freeze. One of them was setting up camera equipment, professional photography gear, long lenses. They're not campers, I said. They're documentarians, looking for Bigfoot. And one of them was examining the ground near our old canyon campsite. Found something. Held it up. A piece of our equipment we'd missed when burying our supplies. They knew or they suspected, and they were getting close. We had to make a decision. Approach them and try to redirect them away from the area, or stay hidden and hope they'd leave. Silas made the decision for us. He gestured. I will approach. Alone. Scare them away. No, I said. If you reveal yourself, they'll photograph you. Document you. Everything we've protected will be exposed. But Silas was adamant. Made sounds that conveyed, my choice, my risk. Protecting you as you've protected me. He was offering to sacrifice his secrecy to protect us, to scare away the documentarians so they wouldn't discover David and me living with Bigfoot. That's not how this works, David said. We're family. We protect each other. You don't take risks alone. Silas made frustrated sounds, gestured emphatically. You've sacrificed careers, future, everything for us. My turn to sacrifice for you. And I understood what he was teaching us. Protection goes both ways. Family means mutual sacrifice. We'd given up our lives to protect them. Now he was willing to risk exposure to protect us. No one approaches alone, I said. We figure this out together. That's what family means. Silas looked at me for a long moment, then made his agreement sound, touched my face, made a vocalization that meant understood, grateful, together. We spent 3 days watching the documentarians. Eventually they packed up, headed back towards civilization. Never found conclusive evidence, never discovered us. But the experience had taught us something crucial. We couldn't stay in this area anymore. Too many near misses, too much attention. We needed to move. The journey to wrangle St. Elias wasn't optional anymore. It was survival. I'm sharing this now because Silas and Rook deserve to be remembered, because what happened to their people deserves to be known. Subscribe if you believe some truths need telling even when they cost everything. That some beings deserve recognition as people, not cryptids. That protection sometimes means breaking decades of silence. Now, 1990, and the journey begins. During our second year with Silas and Rook, I made a critical error in thinking, was treating them like intelligent animals rather than people from a different culture. One afternoon, I was explaining how a compass worked. Condescending tone, simple words like teaching a child. Silas made a sharp sound, stopped me, then led me to high ground. He pointed to landmarks, made vocalizations, gestured in complex patterns, and I realized he was teaching me their navigation system, based on stellar patterns, seasonal plant growth, mineral deposits in stone, water flow patterns. Far more sophisticated than compass navigation because it integrated multiple data sources. I'm sorry, I said. I was being patronizing. You don't need my technology. You have your own systems that work better. Silas made his agreement sound, then made more gestures. Different methods. Not better or worse. Different. That's when I understood. They weren't primitive humans. They were fully developed people with their own sophisticated knowledge systems. They'd chosen not to develop technology because their biological capabilities and environmental knowledge made it unnecessary. That's not less intelligent. That's differently intelligent, and my failure to recognize that had been insulting. Third year, winter 1990-1991. We were deep into preparations for the migration to wrangle St. Elias. One night around the fire, David asked the question that had been haunting us. Why don't we just reveal everything? Document this, prove Bigfoot exist, force government protection, Endangered Species Act coverage, make it illegal to hunt you. Silas listened, then made sounds. Used our shared communication to explain complex concepts. Legal protection requires documentation. Documentation requires exposure. Exposure attracts interest. Interest brings researchers, enthusiasts, hunters, tourists. Even with legal protection, their lives would become surveillance, tracking collars, monitoring stations, researchers documenting every aspect of existence. No privacy, no autonomy. Reduced from people living freely to specimens being studied. And worse, Their regenerative abilities would become public knowledge. Every pharmaceutical company, every military contractor, every government would want access. Legal protection wouldn't prevent illegal harvesting, would just make the hunting more covert and more ruthless. So revealing you to protect you would actually destroy you, David said. Silas made his affirmative sound, then added more. Silence is gift. Privacy is protection. Being unknown is freedom. They'd survived by staying hidden. Every attempt to reveal them, even well-intentioned, resulted in hunting, capture, elimination. The kindest thing humans could do was leave them alone. So we can never publish what we've documented, I said. Silas touched my chest, made sounds that meant, you understand now. Silence is how you love us. Staying quiet is how you protect us. That's mercy. That's love. Choosing their safety over our validation. Choosing their freedom over our proof. 4th year, 1992. We'd been living together for 4 years. We'd transformed completely, looked feral, thought differently, barely remembered how to interact with modern civilization. David got sick, serious infection. Our medical supplies were nearly depleted. He was running a fever we couldn't break with our remaining antibiotics. I was panicking. He needs real medical care, hospital, IV antibiotics. We need to call for extraction. But Silas stopped me, made calming sounds, positioned himself beside David, placed his hands on David's chest, began the low-frequency vocalizations we'd seen him use with Rook's wound. Will that work on humans? I asked. Your healing ability, does it work cross-species? Silas made uncertain sounds. Don't know, never tried. But I try anyway, because family. He worked for hours, maintaining contact with David, making vocalizations, concentrating with intensity that showed this was physically exhausting for him. And David's fever broke. The infection receded. Not as dramatically as with Rook, Silas's abilities seemed less effective on human biology, but enough. Enough to save David's life. Afterward, Silas was exhausted. Rook brought him food, water, made comforting sounds, cared for him while he recovered from the effort of healing. You risked yourself for me, David said when he'd recovered enough to speak. Used an ability you weren't sure would work. Could have exhausted yourself for nothing. Silas made simple sounds, touched David's face. The gesture meant, family. Of course I risked for family. We weren't human and Bigfoot living together anymore. We were family, pack, clan. The species difference had stopped mattering somewhere along the way. We'd become simply people who cared for each other. That same year, we lost our last connection to the outside world. The bush pilot who'd been making supply drops crashed, killed in unrelated accident hundreds of miles away. We found out months later when a different pilot landed at our coordinates with a message. Your regular pilot died. No one else willing to service this remote location. You're on your own. We were now completely isolated. No resupply, no communication with civilization, just us and the wilderness. That night, I broke down, cried for the first time in years, not for the pilot specifically, I barely knew him, but for the final severing of connection to my previous life, to family I'd abandoned, to the future I'd given up. Silas found me crying, made questioning sounds. I explained as best I could. That pilot was my last link to the human world, to my species, to the family I left behind. Now there's no link. I'll never see my parents again, never reconcile with my brother, never explain where I went or why. They probably think I'm dead, and maybe I am. Maybe Mackenzie died years ago, and this is just someone else now. Silas listened, then made complex vocalizations, gestured to the cave with the drawings, the history of his lost clan. You understand, I said, you lost everyone, your whole family, your mate. You know what this grief feels like. Silas made affirmative sounds, then did something remarkable. He began making harmonized vocalizations, deep resonant sounds that weren't quite music, but weren't quite speech. Mourning sounds. Grief vocalized. Rook joined him. David joined with humming harmony. And we sat together, 4 beings from 2 species sharing grief, making sounds that transcended language, expressing loss that was universal regardless of who you'd lost or why. That's when I understood. Grief is the proof of consciousness, the evidence of love. Every being that can mourn proves they can love, can form attachments that matter more than survival. We grieved together, and in that grief, we were more unified than we'd ever been. 5th year, summer 1993. We were ready. Had prepared obsessively, knew the route, had supplies cached at strategic locations along the journey, had timed it to coincide with caribou migration so we could move within the herd's protective camouflage. Silas opened the old field guide one final time, pointed to the marked location in Wrangell St. Elias, made complex sounds. David and I had learned enough of their communication to understand, this is hope. This is possibility. This is why we've survived, to reach this place, to find if others remain. What if there's no one there, I asked. What if it's just another abandoned location? Silas made sounds that conveyed, then we keep searching. But staying here means slow death. 2 males, no females, no way to continue. Migration is our only chance. Rook added vocalizations. Staying safe is dying slowly. Moving is risk of dying quickly, but also chance of living fully. They'd chosen hope over safety. Chosen the possibility of finding others over the certainty of slow extinction in hiding. We're with you, David said. Whatever's there or not there, we go together. We're pack. Silas and Rook made pleased sounds. The 4 of us stood looking at the map. 4 beings planning to cross some of the most brutal wilderness on Earth. 2 humans who'd given up everything. 2 Bigfoot who'd lost everything. All of us betting on the possibility that somewhere others survived. Before we left, David and I made a decision about our journals, our photographs, our 5 years of documentation. We can't take it with us, David said. Too much weight, too much risk if we're caught. We can't leave it, I countered. This is the complete record of their culture, their history, their near extinction. This matters. We argued for days. Finally, Silas intervened, made sounds, gestured to our cameras and journals, made complex communication. Your documentation. Who does it serve, us or you? If it serves us, keep it private. Use it to help us. If it serves you, career, validation, proof, destroy it. Don't create evidence that makes us vulnerable to serve your needs. It serves you, I said immediately. Everything we've documented is about protecting you, understanding you, preserving your history. Silas made his agreement sound. Then, so use it that way. Not for publication, for protection, for showing future humans why we deserve to be left alone. We buried the documentation. Waterproof containers, GPS coordinates recorded, accessible if needed for their protection, but not carried with us, not risked in transit. If we die on this journey, David said, no one will ever know what we found, what we learned. We'll just be 2 journalists who disappeared in Alaska. Good, I said. That means if we die, they stay protected. Our knowledge dies with us. That's the right outcome. Silas touched both our faces, made sounds that meant, this is love, this is family, this is what sacrifice looks like. We were ready to leave everything behind one more time, ready to migrate into the unknown, ready to bet everything on hope. Summer 1993. The journey began. 4 beings leaving the only sanctuary they'd known for years, heading into wilderness even more remote than where we'd been living. I was 33 years old. David was 31. We were in the best physical shape of our lives. Years of wilderness living had made us lean, strong, capable, but we were aging faster than we would have in civilization. The brutal environment, the constant physical demands, the stress of hiding. I'd found grey in my beard. David's hands showed arthritis from cold weather damage. Silas and Rook were aging too. Silas especially. He moved more slowly than when we'd first met. Rook had to help him over difficult terrain sometimes. The scars on Silas's face seemed deeper, his fur more silver. How old do you think he is? David asked one evening as we watched Silas rest. Old, I said. Maybe 60, 70? I don't know how long their kind lives, but he's old for whatever his species' lifespan is. We were racing against time, trying to reach the sanctuary before Silas became too old to travel, before the last 2 Bigfoot of the Brooks Range died without finding others of their kind. 3 months into the journey, September 1993, we'd covered maybe 1/3 of the distance. The terrain was brutal, mountain passes, glacial rivers, tundra that fought every step. Silas was struggling, not dramatically. He was too proud to show weakness, but I could see it. The way he'd pause more frequently, the way Rook would carry more of the supplies, the way his vocalizations became shorter, conserving energy. One night he showed me something he'd been carrying, wrapped in caribou hide, protected carefully. The photographs from the cave, his lost clan. He'd brought them, carried extra weight to keep his family's memory close. He pointed to his mate's image, made soft sounds, then pointed to the map, to the destination, made questioning vocalizations. You're asking if she could be there, I said. If there's any chance she survived and made it to the sanctuary? Silas made affirmative sounds. His eyes showed desperate hope. Hope that had kept him alive for decades. Hope that maybe, impossibly, someone he loved had survived. I don't know, I said honestly. I can't promise, but that's why we're going. To find out, to give you the chance to know instead of wondering. Silas touched the photograph, made sounds that conveyed, willing to die trying, willing to risk everything for possibility of finding her, worth any cost. That's love. That's the love that transcends death and time and species. Willing to bet your last years on the smallest possibility of reunion. As the journey became more difficult, Our physical closeness increased, not sexual, nothing like that, but pack closeness, mammalian bonding through touch and proximity. We'd sleep in piles for warmth, all four of us pressed together against the brutal cold. No privacy, no personal space, just survival through shared body heat and mutual protection. Silas would groom David and me sometimes, the way primates groom each other, checking for injuries, parasites, anything that needed attention, caring for pack members. We'd do the same for them. Check Silas's joints for inflammation, examine Rook's feet for injuries, pack behavior, family care. David got injured in October, fell crossing a glacial river, broke his arm. We had to splint it with materials we found, no hospitals, no modern medicine. Silas used his healing ability, limited effect on human bone, but enough to reduce pain and accelerate initial healing. Then he and Rook carried David's share of the supplies, slowed our pace to accommodate his injury, cared for him like he was one of their own, because he was. We all were. One pack, one family. Species didn't matter anymore. We'd transcended those boundaries. December 1993, 6 months into the journey. We were close. Maybe 2 weeks from the marked location in Wrangell St. Elias. One evening, Silas gathered us, made sounds that clearly meant, need to talk, important. He used our full communication system, vocalizations, gestures, drawings in snow. Took an hour to convey complex concepts. If we reach sanctuary and find no one, no other survivors, this ends. Last 2 males. No way to continue species, except extinction. But if we find others, if females survived, then we separate. Silas and Rook stay with their kind. David and I return to human world eventually. Can't live forever in wilderness. Can't be part of Bigfoot clan permanently. You're saying goodbye in advance, David said. You're preparing us for the fact that if we succeed, if we find others, we lose you. Silas made affirmative sounds. Added more, you've sacrificed 5 years, careers, future, everything. Can't ask you to sacrifice rest of your lives. You have human years left. Need to live them. What if we want to stay? I asked. Silas made firm sounds. You've done enough. More than enough. Given us family when we had none. Given us hope when we had none. Protected us when you didn't have to. Now we release you. Free you. Allow you to have future. Rook made emotional sounds. Touched both our faces. Made vocalizations that meant love you, grateful, always family, but must let you go. We sat there understanding that our 5-year journey was approaching its end, that success meant separation, that finding others for Silas and Rook meant losing them ourselves. We're not ready, David said, crying. We're not ready to say goodbye. Neither am I added. You're our family, our pack. We don't know how to be without you anymore. Silas pulled us close, made comforting sounds, then made vocalizations that meant all families separate eventually. Children grow up, leave, find their own paths. Doesn't mean love ends, means love continues in different form. We held each other, 2 humans, 2 Bigfoot, grieving the end of our pack even before it happened, preparing for the loss we hoped for. Because finding others for them meant losing them ourselves. That's sacrifice, that's real love, hoping for the thing that will break your heart because it's what's best for those you love. December 15th, 1993. We reached the coordinates, the location marked on Silas's map, deep in the Wrangell St. Elias wilderness, terrain so remote we'd seen no signs of human presence for months. The location was a hidden valley, protected by peaks on 3 sides, accessible only through a narrow passage that was easily defensible. Perfect sanctuary, perfect hiding place. But as we approached, we saw no signs of occupation, no smoke, no structures, no tracks. There's no one here, David said. It's abandoned. Silas made distressed sounds. Rook was searching frantically, looking for any evidence that others had been here, had survived. I was about to say something comforting when Rook made urgent vocalizations, pointed to a rock face, charcoal drawings, fresh, recent, showing figures, multiple figures, males, females, young, and a message drawn in symbols we'd learned to recognize from Silas's cave. Gone north, follow to next sanctuary. They were here, I said, recently, within the last year. They left a message for anyone following. Silas was studying the drawings with intensity, making sounds, touching specific figures. Then he made a sound I'd never heard from him. Pure joy, pure hope fulfilled. One of the drawn figures matched his mate from the photographs. Same markings, same proportions. She'd been here. She'd survived. She was alive. The drawings included another map, rougher than the field guide, showing a route further north into even more remote wilderness. Canada, Yukon territory. Maybe another month of travel. Maybe more. into terrain we barely had supplies for. "We can't make it," David said quietly to me. "Our gear is wearing out. We're exhausted. Winter is setting in. Another month of travel will kill us." "But they can make it," I said. "Silas and Rook, they're adapted for this. They can survive what we can't." We approached Silas, showed him our supplies, our condition, made it clear, we can't continue, but you can. Silas made protesting sounds, made gestures that meant, "Pack stays together. Don't leave, Pack. You have to," I said. "Your mate is alive. Others survived. They're waiting for you. You have to reach them, even if it means going without us." Silas looked at David and me, made long, complex vocalizations, emotions we couldn't fully pass but understood meant, "Don't want to lose you. Don't want to separate. You're family. We're family forever," David said. "But families separate sometimes. You need to find your mate. We need to return to the human world eventually. This is where our paths diverge." Rook made sad sounds, touched our faces, made vocalizations that asked, "Will we see you again?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe. Somehow. But maybe not. Maybe this is goodbye forever." Silas pulled us both close, held us like he'd done that first night when David was sick, made sounds that conveyed everything: gratitude, love, grief at separation, hope for reunion, all of it compressed into vocalizations that transcended language. We stayed together one more night, built a fire, shared our last meal as a pack. Silas showed us the photographs one more time, pointed to his mate, made sounds that meant, "Because of you I have hope of seeing her again. Because of you my species has chance of survival. Because of you, I'm not dying alone." "You gave us 5 years of meaning," I said. "You taught us what actually matters. You made us better than we were." Rook made sounds, handed us something wrapped in hide. Inside, carvings, crude but intentional. 4 figures, 2 large, Bigfoot, 2 smaller, humans, standing together. "Pack." "Thank you," David said, crying. "Thank you for trusting us, for making us family, for teaching us that love transcends species." At dawn we separated. Silas and Rook headed north following the map. David and I turned south toward eventual return to civilization. We watched them go. 2 massive figures moving through the snow with grace and purpose, heading toward reunion, toward hope, toward survival. They looked back once, raised their hands. The gesture meant goodbye, meant gratitude, meant, "You'll always be family." We raised our hands in return, watched until they disappeared into the wilderness. We never saw Silas and Rook again. David and I spent 3 months making our way back towards civilization. Barely survived. Reached a small town in the Yukon in March 1994. Looked like wild men, had no identification, no money, no way to prove who we were. We told authorities we'd gotten lost on a hiking trip, spent months in the wilderness. Barely survived. They didn't believe us, but couldn't prove otherwise. Eventually we made it back to the States. To families who thought we'd died. To lives that didn't fit anymore. To a world that felt alien after 5 years living as pack with Bigfoot. We've never published our documentation, never retrieved the buried journals and photographs, never told anyone the full truth, until now, 30 years later, when enough time has passed that maybe, sharing this story won't endanger those who trusted us. I don't know if Silas found his mate, don't know if they reunited, don't know if there's a Bigfoot clan surviving somewhere in the Yukon, raising young, continuing their species, but I hope, God, I hope that our 5 years mattered, that our sacrifice enabled their survival, that somewhere, Silas and Rook are living with their people, free, hidden, safe. That's all I've ever wanted. Their survival, their happiness, their right to exist without being hunted or studied or exploited. We gave 5 years to make that possible. Would give 5 more if needed, because they were family. And you don't abandon family for proof or careers or validation. You protect them forever, no matter the cost. I'm 58 years old now. David is 56. We both survived our return to civilization. Those survived might be generous. We're different people. Can't hold normal jobs. Can't relate to modern society. Live as simply as possible because luxury feels wrong after 5 years of wilderness. David does wildlife photography. Legitimate work now. Never photographs anything that could reveal what we know. Never goes after sensational shots. Just documents nature respectfully. I write freelance articles about wilderness ethics, about respecting boundaries, about recognizing intelligence in non-human beings, never explicitly about Bigfoot, but everything informed by those 5 years. We stay in touch, meet once a year, never talk directly about Silas and Rook, but they're always there, present in every conversation about what matters, about what we learned, about who we became. Last year, David got a letter, forwarded through multiple addresses, no return address, inside a photograph, Polaroid, recent, showing Bigfoot, multiple individuals, adults, juveniles, thriving, hidden but alive, and in the foreground, an old male with familiar scars, beside a female with markings we recognized from Silas's photographs. No message, just the photo, proof that they'd found each other, that they'd survived, that our 5 years mattered. David called me crying. They made it, Mac, they fucking made it. We don't know who sent the photo, don't know how they found us, don't know if Silas is even still alive. That photo could be years old, but it showed us what we needed to know. The species survived, the clan rebuilt, our protection worked. Here's what 5 years living with Bigfoot taught us. First, intelligence exists in forms we don't recognize. Silas and Rook had sophisticated navigation systems, medical knowledge, cultural traditions, artistic expression, moral frameworks. But because they didn't have technology or written language, humans dismissed them as animals. We need to expand our definition of intelligence to include beings whose knowledge systems don't match ours. Second, silence can be protection. Every instinct said, publish our findings, prove Bigfoot exist, get recognition. But revealing them would have meant their destruction. Sometimes the most ethical choice is staying quiet, protecting mysteries instead of solving them, choosing their safety over our validation. Third, family transcends biology. We became pack, genuinely. Not like family, actual family. Species difference stopped mattering. We cared for each other, sacrificed for each other, loved each other as deeply as any biological family. That taught me family is created through choice and consistency, not through genetics. Fourth, grief proves consciousness. Silas's mourning for his lost clan showed depth of emotion equal to human grief. Rook's sadness at our separation proved emotional complexity. Any being that can mourn proves it can love, proves it deserves recognition as a person with inner life and emotional depth. Fifth, migration is hope. Silas and Rook could have stayed in the Brooks Range, stayed hidden, stayed safe. But that meant slow extinction. They chose dangerous migration over safe death, chose possibility over certainty. That's the ultimate expression of hope, risking everything for the chance at something better. And finally, documentation serves those documented. Our journals, our photos, they weren't for us. They were for Silas and Rook, to preserve their history, to protect them by explaining why they deserve to be left alone. Documentation that serves the documented is ethical. Documentation that serves the documenter is extraction. Silas and Rook weren't cryptids, weren't missing links, weren't monsters or mysteries. They were people, different species, but people, with culture, history, family bonds, artistic traditions, medical knowledge, moral frameworks. They deserve recognition as persons, not as animals, not as folklore, as actual persons with rights to privacy, autonomy, self-determination, and they deserve protection from a government that's been hunting them for their biological capabilities, from corporations that would exploit their regenerative abilities, from enthusiasts who would turn them into spectacles. The best thing humans can do for Bigfoot is leave them alone. Let them exist in the wilderness they've inhabited for thousands of years. Stop trying to prove they're real. Stop trying to document them. Just let them be. The carving Rook made, 4 figures standing together, sits on my mantle. Only person who knows what it is besides David is me. To everyone else, it looks like folk art, tourist souvenir from Alaska. To me, it's proof that for 5 years, I was part of something bigger than myself, was loved by beings who had no reason to trust humans, was family with a species we're not supposed to believe exists. That's the gift they gave me. Not evidence, not proof, just love, just family. Just the experience of being fully accepted by beings who saw past species to who I was as an individual. I carry that forward. Every article I write about wilderness ethics, every time I advocate for protected lands, every time I argue that some places should be off limits to human activity, I'm protecting them still. 30 years later, we'll protect them till I die, because that's what family does. If you take anything from this story, take this. Some beings deserve to stay unknown. Some mysteries deserve protection. Some truths are better kept secret. I'm sharing this story 30 years after it happened, after legal threats have expired, after Silas and Rook have, I hope, found safety with others of their kind, after enough time has passed that telling this might not endanger them, but I'm sharing it carefully. No coordinates, no photos, no specific locations, nothing that would let anyone track them down, because the point isn't proving Bigfoot exist. The point is making you think about what we share this planet with, what deserves protection, what rights non-human persons should have. Respect wilderness boundaries. If you're hiking and you find structures that seem deliberate, if you hear vocalizations you can't identify, if you see tracks that shouldn't exist, leave immediately. Don't investigate, don't document, just leave. You're in someone else's territory. Respect that. Question exploitation. If Bigfoot exist, and I'm telling you they do, they have regenerative abilities worth billions to pharmaceutical companies and military contractors. Every attempt to protect them through official recognition would actually doom them to exploitation. Sometimes the kindest thing is leaving beings undiscovered. Expand your definition of person. Intelligence doesn't require human form. Consciousness doesn't require language we understand. Personhood doesn't require technology or civilization. Silas and Rook were people. Fully. Completely. They deserve recognition as such, even if I can never prove it. Advocate for wilderness protection. These beings need vast, untouched wilderness to survive. Support legislation protecting roadless areas. Fight against development of remote lands. Not because you're trying to protect Bigfoot, because you understand wild spaces have value beyond human recreation. I'm 58 years old. I spent 5 years living with the last 2 Bigfoot of the Brooks Range. They taught me what matters, showed me what love looks like across species, made me better than I was. Subscribe if you believe protection matters more than proof. If you believe some beings have the right to remain mysterious. If you understand that love sometimes means staying silent even when speaking would validate everything you've sacrificed. Comment where you're watching from. Tell me if you've ever kept a secret to protect someone vulnerable. If you've ever chosen someone else's safety over your own validation. And if you're ever in remote wilderness, if you find evidence of something impossible, ask yourself, does the world need to know this? Or does this being need to stay hidden? Choose protection. Choose silence. Choose love over proof. Thank you, Silas. Thank you, Rook. Wherever you are, whatever you've become, thank you for trusting us, for teaching us, for making us family. You deserved better from our species. I hope you found it. I hope you're thriving. I hope the clan rebuilt. And I hope you know you were loved. You are loved. You will always be family.